Okay, welcome to this March showcase of the Hunter Living Histories, our cosmic fragments from space and time, we'll call this setting. So I just want to acknowledge the Awabakal people on whose land we are meeting on here at the University of Newcastle. And I just want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I also want to extend that welcome to the Aboriginal people of the countries that you're zooming in to us today from across New South Wales and across the world, if that's the case. So thank you very much. So just a question of Zoom etiquette is just try to keep yourselves muted to avoid any background noises. We've got a couple of presentations today. One is on the satellite's legacy, which is really tracking an inquiry that my colleague here, Davina, received from Philip Rosa and family about a piece of crashed spacecraft whose remnants sat in the physics department for quite some time and whose analysis was done by Professor Colin Kay, Professor Colin Kay. So it's taken us through this inquiry. We've located this remnant, and it's with us here in the room, and we're just hoping to have a reunion between our colleagues in physics, the family of Colin Kay, Philip Rosa, who found the thing back in 1975 in the Pilliga Forest, and everyone else is interested in, I guess. So it's sitting at the end of the table. I know, Philip, you won't be able to see it, but we might be able to take a machine. But I'll hand over to my colleague Davina to just introduce us to the inquiry and what led us to this point. So over to you.
Thanks, Johnny. So Heather, who's a family friend of Karen and Philip Rosa.
You there, Heather?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
That's good.
So Heather sent through the inquiry with an image of a segment of the photograph of Professor Kay with the actual fragment, and it was poor condition. There was no information, no dates. So it was a bit difficult to sort of where to start from. We kind of guessed around the 70s, so we looked at sort of newspaper articles. But on further information from Heather brought to light, I was able to sort of extrapolate that it was 1974, 75, and then 4 years later, the Colin Kay article was actually identified 4 years after Philip had actually handed the piece in and Williamstown engineers had a look at it. So, Philip, I don't know if you wanted to, if you can recall when you found it, like where in the forest you found it and how you came across it and what led you to hand it in.
That's you. So you can talk to them. They're just asking you about where you found it.
Yeah, it was out in the middle of the Pilliga Forest, actually, on what they call number 4 extension. It was somewhere where no one has ever walked or anything. No roads or anything. Yeah, 15 to 20 kilometres in where there was no roads. So it's never been put there. It's come from somewhere up above.
And there was someone from the RAF base at the time in the town that suggested that they tried to take some scrapings of the paint, and it wouldn't come off.
That was our local chemist in Brogabri. He took it all up and done everything. I'd never seen it again after it left. He sent it to Williamstown, I think, on the old train, and I think it may have went to Sydney. It got a bit lost on the way, and then it come back to Williamstown, I think.
So that was DB Cameron, was it?
Yes.
That's him, yeah. He was well into his 70s at the time.
I want to put this on a post. So we started off with your article. We also had a picture of the Pilliga Forest somewhere in our collection. So if you've got a better one, we can put that up too, just to give you an idea. And then we got you. You haven't changed a bit. So the other person in this story is Professor Colin Kay. So when Davina was trying to find the article, we thought maybe we could have a look. We had 8 boxes of material from Professor Colin Kay. So we had all that spanned out on the table, but none of it related. We had some fantastic books on his early observations of meteors and things like this, but there was nothing on this particular incident until the letters to the editor basically helped track us down the original article. So once we were able to find those, we pinpointed the article, and then it said in the article that the actual piece of Soviet spy satellite was in the physics department, because it was amazing that Colin was able to find which particular Soviet satellite the thing had come from when it exploded in space. And he was very good with trajectories, because when Sputnik was launched in 1957, he was able to track the trajectory of Sputnik, which coincides with another Newcastle story about Little Richard, because that's what scared Little Richard into thinking that, God was after him for his debauched rock and roll lifestyle. So it's all intertwined with us around here. But anyway, it was just amazing what Professor Colin Kay was able to do. And then I guess once we found that when we tracked down the display board with the actual piece of satellite in it, there was a provenance note about the person that gave it to the physics department. So this satellite fragment was presented to the physics department by squadron leader R.D. Guthrie via his son, Carl Guthrie, who at the time, 1979, was a Physics 2 student. So it just goes to show you how these sorts of things happen. So it was also good with the display, because there was also the results from the electron microscope that we didn't have in anything else. So we took a photograph from that. There were articles on the Sky Lab debris. If you have a look at the Hunter Living History site, there you'll be able to see the post. We did send you the link. I don't know if you're interested. I added these pictures this morning. And Gillian Shaw, our art curator, she found it in the art stores, thanks to Emeritus Professor John Connor, who was able to tell us what had happened after it had left the physics department. So it's been a little bit of a detective hunt story from our forest, just finding it in another forest here at the university to its second end of the table. So I don't know, Philip, if you've seen it in the last 50 years, but I'll take oh no, I can't, can I?
No, we might have to
Hang on.
probably just get towards that camera.
Well, look, you can see it through my camera instead of seeing my.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
You see it there?
Paris, yes.
Changed much in 50 years.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Changed a little bit in looks, only in colour. Like when it was first found, it was just probably only been there a few days by the look of it. It wasn't weathered or
Was it
anything.
shiny?
Yeah, it was
When
like
did
a
you?
brass thing.
This explosion happened in September of 1975.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's when it blew up in space.
Oh,
So
right.
That's interesting.
Right.
found it in the forest. Do you remember the day that you found it?
No, wouldn't have a clue. Like at that time, we just thought it was a bit of junk metal,
Yeah.
Find a lot of stuff out in the forest, different times.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the results of the electron microscope. I remember when I was a kid visiting the electron microscope on the uni tours. Have you still got it over there, physics guys?
No.
Okay. All right. Anyway, it says here that its largest peak is titanium, then aluminium, with the smallest revealing a trace of chromium. So, but the Herald really gave a fascinating report, in-depth report of what they found. Then the other thing was Skylab, which they thought was going to fall as well in 1979, was it? So they had clippings on that. But anyway, there you go, Philip. I'm happy to see you.
Awesome.
It's good.
Okay. Where are you actually zooming from today? Is that Dubbo or are you in Bogabra?
No, we're in my shop in Gunnedah.
In Gunnedah. Okay.
Yes.
That's good. Right. Okay, so that's it. I don't know if Andra Kay is online. Anyway, we contacted the family of Professor Colin Kay and just we were actually trying to see if they had anything in their papers relating to it at the time. But anyway, they're really thrilled with it, and it's been a good story for us to sort of promote the
Yeah, that's good.
Fabulous.
in its 60th year. So this is the reunion over the Soviet space stuff. Hopefully, I've been checking to see who's been accessing the site. I haven't seen any Russians yet, so but, quite welcome to sort of have a look at their piece of stuff.
They've got other things on their mind.
So,
Thank
any questions or any observations? Yes.
I'm actually wondering, what did you do there to find this piece of metal so far away in the bush area? Kind of. What
Why
did you
was
do there?
he
Why were you there, Philip?
Yeah,
You were a sleeper cutter.
yeah, it's a sleeper cutter out there.
So what's that? Is that a person that cuts rail sleepers?
That's
Yes,
right, yeah.
yes.
Used to be, all finished now.
So that's what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why he was out in the scrub in the first place. Yeah.
So after all this happened, did anyone get in touch with you about it, or before did they try to reach? Because I know that Professor Colin Kay didn't know anything about it until your chemist let everyone in the Herald know who you were. So he didn't have an identification for who found the.
No.
No one's ever been in contact or anything. The only person that's bought it, showed Heather the papers, and she's done it all.
Yeah. Look, we just want to stress how incredible the stuff was, because this is before Google, and to find when a satellite launched, to find when it exploded, to find where it could have ended up, I think was pretty amazing for 1979, you know. And today, tracking it down, I was able to Google it. We could find the kind of satellite that it was. So all that information is available to us now. But back then, I can only guess how difficult it would have been to locate all this stuff. So it's just to me, it's an inspiring story about, you know, academic rigor and physics. I was surprised to. I was a bit so worried that we still had physics here at the university, you know, but it was good that we did. And because I come from the classics, so
And indeed we do.
It's awesome to actually get a response back, because I've been trying to chase it for nearly 2 years.
wow.
Wow.
All right.
Who threw?
Everyone, anyone, through the different universities, trying to work out where it was, if anyone knew anything. And then Davina got on to me.
There you go.
And I thought, yeah.
Well, we are probably the greatest university in Australia with this sort of stuff.
Well, I can say a few words about Colin and this. So I'm John Holsworth. I'm a physicist, and I joined the department in 2001. And Colin was an early mentor within the department. And he, in fact, showed this piece to me, and it was on display at the end of the physics corridor. I think we can attribute motivating a fair fraction of our students with
There you go.
display, and this was one of I'd say many. It was certainly one of a few displays that would rotate around at the end of the physics corridor. And it was there for many years until we decided to renovate the end of physics, and then it went into the archives, which is, almost lost forever.
Not our archives, we're into art storage.
Oh, the art storage, yes. So it's a delight, in fact, to see it at the end of the table there, because this sort of thing is historic, not just because it was found in the Pilliga forest, but it is a piece of the history of rocketry.
Yes.
And Colin was an astronomer and a radiation expert. So he was, if you like, ideally qualified to measure any emissions that may or may not be coming from the piece. And he was very proud of the fact that it was on display at the end of the corridor.
Awesome.
Yes. And John O'Connor, emeritus professor now, I think he's backing a push to have this put in a more salubrious display case than it currently is.
Yeah.
Because the display case dates from probably 1975.
Yeah.
It's showing it.
There's essence of ACDC road stuff musicians carry things around.
Yeah. Yes. So unfortunately, Colin is no longer with us. He's passed on. John is still hale and healthy, and like I said, the motivator to have this piece displayed somewhere other than the art store, and in a much more salubrious frame than it currently is.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So your inquiry has had great ramifications.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
How it's come full circle now. Yeah.
Good round.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Folks.
Yeah, good on you. So thanks for your inquiry. So hopefully it'd be wonderful to sort of get it into some kind of new housing.
Yes.
Because I'd like to see the other side of it too. At the moment, it's sort of pinned up against the wall. But we'll just see. I don't know what they've got planned for it, but hopefully it'll be modernised. And
But they should come down and see it here.
It'd be wonderful.
Mm.
Yes. Next time Phil's down.
so let us know. And I think it'll probably be sitting with us in the archives until the physics people organise what they want to do next with it. So either between here or physics, which is just a stone's throw. It's not too far away. It's just up there.
Oh, that would be so awesome.
Yeah. So this thing's come quite a long ways to have a school reunion with us right now.
Yeah.
The other thing I love about it is the community thing, whereby you can, indirectly call the powers of a physics professor at the university to analyse something you found in the forest. I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Because, what have you got universities for if not to indulge in that sort of fun stuff? And I think it's great for the students to see, things can fall out of the sky and you can understand incredible.
And educate the rest of us a bit more.
Might bring world peace too, you never know in this climate of unpredictability.
Well, on that, if I can just very briefly, it's worth pointing out that the physics department at the University of Newcastle is still actively engaged in community, publishing articles on relevant topics that are of interest. Some of my colleagues here have published some just recently.
Fantastic.
And if anyone does find more metal fragments from space, we're more than happy to analyse them.
There you
There
go.
you go. Look for some more.
You better get out in the forest and keep looking. Start training up new.
Well, that's just wonderful. Thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of this today.
No, it's a joy. I'm so glad when Davina came in, she was so excited in the reading room. She said, come and zoom in. Well, nothing else to my thing. So I was just hoping that maybe the family of Professor Colin Kay would join us as well. Then we'd have a matching set. But it's all right. We can relive it later.
This is
Anyway, thank you very much. If there aren't any more questions, we'll move on to the next presentation, which kind of has another fragment story about it.
Can we look at it?
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Doing good.
I'd like to say, Colin Kay, of course, did a weekly, I think, or was it monthly, in the Newcastle Morning Herald.
I was addicted to his star
Me
charts.
too.
Yeah.
And I also went on one of his viewing tours to look at Halley's Comet when it came through. One time. Today, I was asked, because it's 60 years since the autonomy of the University of Newcastle, it had already been in existence as the locals considered it a university already, but officially autonomy in 1965.
Yeah.
And also because this week is International Women's Day this week, I was asked, would I give a talk about a woman that was linked to the uni? And I looked through my files and I came up with the unique Dr. Rona Bear, who was a lecturer in classics. So first of all, I'd just like to also pay my respects to the Awabakal people and this on our unceded land we are meeting on, and also all their descendants. Now, Rona Bear was born on the 20th of July 1935. She was the oldest child of Sylvia Gibson and William Bear, who was Professor of Latin at Bristol University and the author of a book called The Roman Stage, which is still available for purchase today. So they lived in Bristol, England. Now, as a child, Rona would have met Robert Graves, the poet and author of I, Claudius, who is reputed to have spent a great deal of time reading in the Bear family library during World War II as a big classics library. So Rona was educated at Bristol Girls High School and in the early 50s read classics at Girton College, which was the first women's college at Cambridge and which had only been granted full academic status in 1948. Now, Rona had read The Hobbit when she was at school, and at Cambridge she read The Lord of the Rings through 3 times straight, including the appendices. So you're already getting a bit of an idea of the kind of person she is. And then while doing research in Latin and Greek for a PhD at the University of Exeter, she took an interest in medieval history and started sending detailed questions, letters to J.R.R. Tolkien. It seems Tolkien enjoyed their correspondence, but perhaps her new passion distracted her from her studies because she missed out on getting a PhD. In the early 1960s, Rona was assistant lecturer in classics at Westford College, University of London, for 4 years. And then in 1966, so a year after autonomy, she was appointed a lecturer in classics at this university. Now, her father, eulogised as a modest, sober, humane and forthright scholar, had died 3 years previously, but he had studied at Trinity College, Dublin, with Newcastle University Vice-Chancellor at the time, J.J. Ormuty, of course, who was libraries named after. And that was, could have been the draw card for Rona to come here. In those days, you sailed to Australia normally, and on embarking from the SS Iberia in Sydney, Rona was met by classics lecturer Godfrey Tanner on the wharf. The introverted Rona and the extroverted Godfrey would become two distinctive figures at the university for decades. Now, I started at Newcastle Uni in 1968, and although I never studied classics, I remember seeing Rona Bear sweeping across the grounds with her hair in a bun. That picture on the left there is what she looked like about then, and her calf-length skirt. This was the 1960s, remember, and skirts were well above the knee and getting shorter and shorter. So to me, she looked very old-fashioned. And on consulting a friend who studied under her, I learnt that not only was Rona the typical blue-stocking female intellectual, but she often used to wear blue stockings to emphasise that descriptor. She was definitely eccentric, you see. Even Rona's sister, Nancy, described her as a one-off. Now, Rona could read Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, French and German and use these skills in esoteric ways. For example, using her knowledge of the Greek alphabet and Norman French, she decrypted a code used by a messenger of Queen Elizabeth I. I'm not sure why, but she did. Very interesting. And so it's not surprising to learn that she had her sign on her office door, room G45 in the late McMullen's building, and excuse my French, Seigneur, ta mère si grande et mon bateau est si petit. The quote from the Breton Fisherman's Prayer was also displayed in President John F. Kennedy's Oval Office, but he needed the English translation, which is, Lord, your sea is so big and my boat is so small. Now, Rona Bear's many talents included various types of needlework, especially tapestry and knitting. And by studying a fragment of an ancient Roman sock, she worked out the type of stitches the Romans used. Now, I wonder if she entranced the audience. That looks like I've put my pages together in the wrong order. I wonder if she entranced her audience at the Newcastle and Hunter District Historical Society in 1982 with her talk on the history of Roman knitting. At University Open Day, she used to give demonstrations of Roman and Greek spinning and weaving. As Rona never married, she was seemingly the archetypal spinster, so it was a delight to come across this photo of her dancing at a 1974 ball. And I'm not sure who Peter Carroll, the name sounds familiar, but I couldn't find him online. Now, in 1975, Rona finally received her PhD from Exeter, and which with a thesis on ancient oaths. Hang on, I'm just sorry. Which is a feature on ancient oaths, which could be worth reading, I think. Be quite interesting reading. Now, as well as lecturing at the university, sometimes to only 2 students majoring in classics, Rona wrote articles on Tolkien for many small specialist journals. For example, she was attracted to Tolkien's time travel stories, so one of her articles related examples of time travel and time distortion in literature. She translated Tolkien's songs for the philologists from the Middle, Modern and Old English, which had been written, he wrote, in Modern, Middle and Old English, Icelandic, Latin and Gothic. She translated them into modern English and hunted out the tunes. One of her translations was included in a 1982 publication, The Road to Middle-earth. Rona must have been chuffed when 2 of the Tolkien's letters to her were published in 1985 in a 20-page booklet for distribution very, a small publication to the 95 members of the New England Tolkien Society in the United States. And whilst her 1999 booklet, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion, was published by Nimrod Publications, founded by Norman and Jean Talbot at Newcastle University. Now, when asked to submit an entry into the Who's Who of Australian Women, Rona listed research into epic poetry and English literature as special interests. She also wrote poetry herself, as can be seen by this entry in a 1984 Nimrod publication. I'm not sure if you can read that, but the implication is every age is the wrong age to die. And there was a book of humorous verse. Now, Rona devoured books of all kinds. She was a member of the Jane Austen Society. And above all, as her sister Nancy attested, she loved detective stories. She especially liked to visit the places mentioned by her favourite authors, once visiting the Tower of London just to see the precise turret from which some villain is said to have shot his victim. Now, Godfrey Tanner retired from the university in 1993, and while Rona did not retire until 2000. Now, just before she retired, there is a little story about a fragment, a different kind of fragment, which Julie, when I finish my talk, Johnny might like to mention because he's linked to it. But on the occasion of her retirement, as Living Histories recently posted, the classics professor Harold Tarrant observed that Rona had an agile mind capable of retaining anything except her students' names. And so far from being moulded by the necessities of life into a recognisable pattern, she remained, like her long-term colleague Godfrey, sui generis. For those not familiar with the Latin term, it means unique. After retirement, Rona returned to Bristol and continued to pursue her passions. Her talk, Influence of Climate on Myth, Tolkien's Theory and Practice, at the Tolkien 2005 convention in Birmingham, was published in the conference proceedings. Now, in the last months of her life, Rona's still agile mind was evident in her asking for copies of Dante's Divine Comedy in the original Italian and the New Testament in Greek, because she said the text was clearer. Rona died on 20th February 2018. Former University of Newcastle Professor Marguerite Johnson, who had visited Rona at her basement flat in Bristol after her retirement, gave a eulogy at a meeting of the Executive Committee of the Australasian Society for Classical Studies. And in a later interview, Marguerite commented that she had been mostly taught by men in classics, but was also taught by Dr. Rona Baird, an extraordinary woman, most definitely an individual, and one of the most brilliant minds I've encountered, Marguerite said. So how is Rona Baird remembered now? Well, only 3 months after her death, a Tolkien fan was boasting online, and it's still online, that he had acquired a nice set of books from Dr. Baird's Tolkien library. So family obviously cleaned out the flat very quickly. And he was excited because her numerous annotations on pages would give him new ideas about Middle-earth. And her sister Nancy made a gift to the Girton College to establish a scholarship in her name to enable a talented student to continue their studies in classics. And Elizabeth Stuckdale, who I hadn't heard of before, but she's an honorary associate of the University of Sydney, a classics academic, has written an entry in real biographical, I should say, dictionary of women classicists entitled Rona Bear, Girton, Australia and Tolkien, which is due for publication this year. So need to get a copy. The uni needs a copy. So it seems the unique Rona Bear will not be forgotten for a while yet.
Thank you. Yes, Rona was a great eccentric. She and Godfrey were like the female and male versions of the same sort of entity, you know. I was catching the 100 bus with them every afternoon. So, you know, either one of them would come walking past and just start a conversation. Just can't start wherever they were at, and you just sort of pick up on where they were up to at some point. And eventually, by the time you had to get off, you finally understood where they were. So Rona,
where did she live? Just to interest.
She lived in a small. I think she lived in Mayfield, but in a old-fashioned sort of a bedsit where they were like boarders. She had someone who cooked her lunches and things like that. So it was like a really old-fashioned way of, you know, those stories of people.
Boarding house.
Yeah, like a boarding house, but they were the only boarder.
Oh,
you know, I think I've heard of one other person that does that. So, but it was interesting. But yeah, our fragment when Dennis bought a $66 fragment of a book, I mean, it was used as the binding of another book, and it had all these Latin things, and all we could make out of it was just Angeli and Demoni, so it was like angels and demons. And I just sent an email to everybody on campus that had any relation to medieval works, and the people that responded were the classicists, in particular Rona, you know. And Rona was meticulous in just these sorts of things. So this sort of thing on the 100 bus, we just discuss it every day because the medievalists had access to databases, but none of them responded to us. So we were doing everything by longhand. So this is why the story of Colin with the physics and the fragment from space and us, what we were doing, we were using microfilms. We had a piece of scrap from, you know, the 13th to the 15th centuries. We had no idea what book it came from. And by the end of a week, we'd sorted out where it came from, and Rona had created a translation, first translation of this section of the book. Not the published version, but the manuscript version, you know. And so we thought it was an achievement, and you know, so did the Sydney Morning Herald and some mob in New York, and it sort of became like an international story. But you know, to the medievalists, they were going, well, why are they making a big deal out of this? And didn't they just search the database? You know, I said, well, we didn't have access to the database. We were doing it all longhand by running up and down stairs, having a look at microfilms, you know, comparing what he was talking about here, finding out who was talking about that in the 13th century, and then finding it. So it was just a great adventure. And then we put together this little book with her translation, pictures of the fragment. And then that became a parting gift when she retired. That became sort of our farewell gift to Rona. So it was this very similar thing with what happened with Colin Kay and this fragment from space. This was Rona's fragment from, you know, medieval times that ended up being her sort of farewell out of the university. So, but yes, it's not like an emotional sort of connection. It was like an intellectual sort of connection with these people. Both her and Godfrey were very similar sort of characters. You know, they were in love with this sort of intellectual world, and it was fun. It was just great, and you know, to involve the 100 bus made it a community thing. You know, so Colin getting involved with something that fell in the Pilligas forest for us was very similar to, you know, Peter Lombard would never have hoped in his dreams, you know, in France somewhere that he would be, you know, being discussed on a 100 bus trying to sort out where a piece of fragment that had been used in the binding of a book would have ended up in Australia. So, yeah. And then after that, another fella donated another piece of exactly the same part of the book. So she translated that as well. So anyway, thank you very much, Jude. We'll add that to the list. I think she was also published in Tolkien's collected letters, I think. Her letters.
Oh, she would have been. Yes, yes, of course.
All right.
Could I throw in something? I have an early 70s sort of I don't know, picture of Rona. She used to fascinate me. Some people would know I was quite friendly with Godfrey over the years, but not directly with Rona. But I used to sit in the Ock Community Library near those. I don't know I don't think I've not been there for a long time. Those glass rooms, the glass tutorial rooms that people used to have meetings in, or postgraduates used to meet in. And I'd be sitting out there working on whatever I was working on. And Rona would have lovely hair, like her hair done in spectacular fashion, quite often when I saw her with hair knots, which I'll come to in a minute. But it used to fascinate me watching her. She'd be in that room on her own in a glass room. And I used to ponder now, what is she doing? Because she was relatively famous amongst the student population at the time. And in fact, I'm sorry I came in late. I would have loved to have heard the earlier part of your presentation. But I remember the rumour was that Rona was working on a thesis on Roman hair knots after her other one on Roman sandal straps didn't prove popular. Now, that was, of course, the local scuttlebutt amongst students at the time, and I have absolutely no reason to believe that was specifically true, but it was certainly something that was mumbled amongst the students at that time, and she often had her hair as an interesting feature of her appearance, and she just used to fascinate us. So I never actually spoke to Godfrey about her. I regret now that I didn't, but I just have that image of her like I don't know, in a glass cage, sitting there quietly working on her own on whatever her wonderful thoughts were at that time. And I was a lonely undergraduate ploughing away through classic civilizations and mathematics. But anyway, I'll leave you with that I have fond memories of her, even though I never really had a great conversation with her.
Oh, I just repeat that her PhD thesis was on ancient oaths.
Right.
So lots of swear words, I assume, not hair knots.
Yeah, I know. That was the scuttlebutt amongst all the wicked students at the time.
Yes.
Was that her first thesis was rejected on Roman sandal straps, and that she was then taking up Roman hair knots. This was the gossip of that time period. We were all very wicked, of course, and I wouldn't be surprised if Godfrey had a hand in feeding that, but I can't say that he did.
I asked about them once, Rona and Godfrey, and it was told to me that they were competitors. So they might have, I don't know, that's why.
Competitors.
They were competitors at, I don't know, being Latinists or,
Yes.
But as far as I was concerned, they were just, if you needed anything translated or properly examined, I mean, they were just both great specialists, especially Rona.
What again was her thesis on?
Ancient oaths.
Oaths.
I'm having trouble saying that. Yes, ancient swear words.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Can I just raise an issue getting back to the piece of sapphire? Is are many pieces like 3D scanned? You know how like a lot of people doing 3D scanning, putting them up on platforms such as Sketchpad. So I think this would be a great piece to share.
In between rehousing, maybe you could get it through this.
It would be the work of a moment to do a 3D scan of it. And
So just wonder, where did the other pieces land? Is that Australia?
Colin was asked that question. He reckons they all just vanished in space because of the force of the explosion, and also re-entry. That's survived re-entry. And he used this analogy of a kind of a seed. It helped buffer itself as it was coming, made a sort of swivel motion. Caraway seed or something he said it sort of wobbled its way in and sort of
sharing it online. There may be someone else has got another piece of the same craft
somewhere.
had that been spherical, it would have impacted the Earth at great velocity, and it wouldn't have been found because it would have been well buried. But that particular shape would have fluttered down and had a much more gentle landing. It's clearly got hot, as you would expect, and that's evident from the coloration of it. But yes, that particular shape made it to Earth, and the rest of it would have sprayed out into space and landed over a very large area.
The explosion was in space.
The explosion was in space.
Is it possible there are fragments still in space that have not yet deorbited?
Possible. It is possible. There's a lot of space junk up there.
They said that just before that films was taking, obviously films before that was supposed to have engaged. That's when the explosion occurred, during that process of, sending the films back to send the reconnaissance. Yes, all right. Well, that's fabulous. All right, well, thank you very much, Jude, and thank you very much for that question. We're going to keep talking about these fragments for a while. Yeah. So anyway, round of applause for Jude and for Ronan there. Also, we have Glenn Norman here, one of the duo that is creating all the Stories of Our Town films. Now we've got a pop-up space courtesy of Jerry Schwartz.
Jerry Schwartz in a weird way, yeah. All put together by Kerry Goodall, who has the Steve Irwin, the big Sea Shepherd ship that people might have seen in Carrington. She approached us and said, can we show some films? And we said, that's what we love to do more than anything else. And so we've done like a degustation kind of setup where we've paired people speaking and with the film. So we had the opening, which Anne was there, and it was great. We had Maynard came along from the Castanets. We played the Castanet film. We played the Star Hotel film. People laughed all the way through it, which was good because it was meant to be funny. It was very Newcastle, and Maynard hung around DJ. There's 5 all up. So this weekend we've got Professor Ron Boyd, who, if you've ever heard Ron talk, is just incredible. He's a geologist and just fascinating. And he's going to be paired up with the Wibbergamba Nobby's Headland story. And he was in that. And when we interviewed him for that, he talked to us for an hour and we went, holy crap, what are we going to do with this? Because we could have played that hour. It was so fascinating. So he's going to be on this weekend. And then after that, the Thursday after that, we get to play our new film, which is very exciting, on Ralph Snowball. A lot of people, you would probably know who Ralph Snowball is, a photographer that photographed Newcastle between 1885 and 1915, and then he's 25. That's when he died, though, but he stopped taking photos.
His photos with 1925.
I'm sorry, because Mark's an expert. He does. We've been given a bum steer on that. Anyway, they disappeared for decades and were found in New Lambton in about 88. And some of those went to the library, and I think I saw Kerry Shaw from the library is zooming in.
She's in, yeah.
She's been helping us and the volunteers, including Mark, because they've been digitising. And so there's, how many have you got over there? About 4,000? 5,500 with you. And then the university has got about 1,500, and we've been working with John and Anne and Amir, who's this wonderful conservator who's been restoring some of the photos. It's a fabulous story. We can't wait to share it with people. So you can get along. There's Kerry. Hello, Kerry, too. Doing a great job. I drive her crazy. I keep finding new photos. And so even this morning I said, can you please send me this photo? And it was back on my desk straight away. So thank you. So we're going to be playing that. And then we've got another session on shipwrecks, and James Hunter, who's a great friend of John and now is coming up from the Maritime Museum to talk about shipwrecks. And there's a new shipwreck that he thinks we're going to discover in the harbour from 1816, which is this Estremina, which we've talked about in the 100 Living Histories here. He's got some new information, and we're going to get a magnetometer, I think is the term, and we're going to put it in the harbour and try and find this ship, which is ridiculous for us making these films because we've been filming this process of him finding it for quite a while now. So he's going to give a speech. So this is all at these events. And then that's going to be followed by Sammy Bailey, who's a children's author who studied the work of the Scott sisters and worked at the museum in Sydney where the Scott sisters' images are at. She's going to do an art class coupled with our film. So that's very exciting. But the Snowball film has been a wonderful journey, and all these films are. This will be our 21st film, and you know the circle just gets bigger and bigger. I mean, Kerry has I'd never met Kerry, and she'd actually been helping with us for years on things like Wibbergamba and some of the other stories. And she was just this anonymous face on email. So it's been wonderful to go in there and drive her crazy. And she's in the film and stars in the film, and is such an expert on this, and it's been wonderful. So we can't wait to share it. And of course, all these films are available on our YouTube channel, Stories of Our Town. We give them away. We don't charge, and they've been financed by the university and the council and Heritage New South Wales. So it's a really good team effort, this one, and I hope people watch it, because you never know. Like, Shipwrecks went crazy because shipwrecks are universal, but this is very much Newcastle. But this collection of photos by one single person, I don't think there's many catalogues in the world like this, and there's a humanity to these photos, and there's a lot of weird photos you didn't need to take that are in there, and we've shot a lot. So please watch that and follow us on Facebook, Stories of Our Town. And if you want to book stuff, if you go to our Facebook page, Stories of Our Town, there's just a link you can click. And they're free, all these events, by the way.
And the premiere's on the 13th of March.
13th of March. There might be a few tickets left, but you have to book, but they're free. And it's at 6:30 at night, so we know everyone. I'm old. I don't want to be up late, so 6:30. And it's also our longest film at 1 hour, so there's a lot to pack in. So I hope that helps.
This is at the museum.
Well, it's not at the museum. This is a misconception, which is a pain in my ass. So what it is that this space...
As in a donkey, not
No. So what it is it's actually an apartment block, and downstairs there's like a 300 square metre retail space. So think if you're coming through the old gates from the Fred Ash building to where the museum would be on your left-hand side, it's the apartment block straight away on the right-hand side, and it's the ground level.
That's a new building.
It's a new, yeah.
The one that's built over the old
last 10
highway.
years.
used to be.
Yeah, so it's in the last 10 years or so.
Where the ice skating rink used to be.
It's
Nexus.
The address is number 1.
Starts.
Yeah, 1/1 Merriweather Street. So but if you have to book, please just go onto that link, and it's going to be fun. I'm very excited to show it to people.
Very good filmmakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
So and now you've met the physics staff in the uni, you never know when you may meet up.
Oh yeah, yes. Oh yeah.
We're quite tame.
We're quite tame. Well, I thought Ron Voight was going to be tame as well, but
Okay, I just, for a hot topic discussion, I just wanted to put on this really sad story about what's going on with the plaques, the historic plaques across Newcastle and Lake Macquarie, just for an open discussion for a couple of minutes, because it just was kind of horrifying. And I'm kind of very worried, Doug, for our wonderful plaque of the Macquarie Pier that's stuck in there. I hope they're not going to target it. But for the last few months, they've just been ripping off every single copper and bronze plaque. And I just can't believe no one's seen these guys. Anyway, the one that's the most heartbreaking to me is probably the Shelley Smith a Wobbical one at Lake Macquarie, which was the canoe. They ripped the entire canoe out and it's disappeared. So that was only installed a few weeks ago. So yeah, it's pretty tragic. I know that Mark Patricus, who's not in the country at the moment, has made comments on the Herald site. But I mean, I just want to stress the amount of work that goes into these things. I remember the late Jack Delaney had a plaque put up. I hope it hasn't been sort of ripped off, but it took Jack ages to put this plaque together, to get the finance to actually make it and to get it installed. So whoever's out there that's doing this stuff or selling it, I hope that the metal scrap guys who are taking possession of it should understand that this stuff, I mean, I don't know how they could be.
Should be interviewing
Well,
who is
understand.
receiving, who is paying for this melted stuff. That's where they should be targeted. They should be going there.
Because the one at Parnell Place.
Just a second, just on that.
Yeah.
I have some info. Apparently, they take the scrap to Queensland where you don't have to prove ID before it gets dumped and sold. So it's an organised crime syndicate. I got that info on Saturday. So it's not local hooligans or anything. So, yeah, it's a big problem.
Could I just add in there, some of our people have been investigating it, and one fellow who was involved in scrap metal before he retired and is now on our gun crews and so on, apparently he's been back to the firm that he worked with and said, you know, are you seeing any of this stuff coming in? And they said, well, we think we are, but anything that we've had a look at, it's been chopped up before it comes to us.
There are photos of the wall, I presume, of all these plaques.
I don't know.
I've got a few.
Yeah, well, I've got I hope they don't touch the Macquarie Pier one, because that took us ages to create, and it was paid for. We had to raise the funding to pay for that, all right? So
yes, but Johnny, you know, that can be replaced, something similar. What went a while back was a BHP plaque from World War II of listing all the merchant seamen that had died in World War II. And that's a historic plaque in itself. It's not a plaque about history. And now the 4 bas reliefs on the bottom of the Colin Monument have gone. And they're historic plaques in themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, it is like the Macquarie Pier one and the Wabika one. Costly, yes, but they can be replaced because in themselves they're not historic.
Yeah.
So they upset me.
They could be replaced, but I'm telling you,
Well,
the amount of work that's gone into them, they won't be.
Yeah.
And Mark, I know there was one relating to the Stockton mine disaster that also disappeared. Is that right?
We've lost about 6 or 7.
Okay.
And the test,
We were going to
the
get
line,
some facsimile ones put on
yes,
there just for the information.
yes.
Anyway, I just thought, I mean, it's just a very sad story. I mean, from our point of view, being involved in these things, I know the councils are going to do an inventory and see whether they can replace them, but a lot of the time council didn't pay for them. You know, they helped install them, but the actual plaques themselves, I think, were sort of created by various groups that raised funding and took ages to do it. You know, I mean, I know that Macquarie Pier Park took a long time, and so you know, when you say they can be replaced, yes, they can be, but I can't see it happening if they did disappear.
It's the one of all the names in Newcastle Castle of the streets and who they were named after on the SMEC building.
Yeah.
I think that was the Newcastle Engineers Association.
Yeah.
That. The little plaque beside it is still there.
Yeah.
That says who it was done by, but the big plaque itself is gone.
Yes.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and Tonga House Chapel Bill was like, well, it was stolen a while ago, but it was only identified over the weekend, and that was a replica.
Okay.
So they're even stealing like replicas.
So it's sad. I feel for those for people that have
I think they're looking at laser etched stainless steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mayor was interviewed the other day and he said that there is a material that they can be made out of which no one would want to steal. It's not going to do anything.
It's a shame. Anyway, I just thought I'd raise that as a topic of discussion. It's been going on since October, and we know Shelley Smith here at the university. She's in architecture, and I had no idea. I mean, the story was reported at the beginning of the year, and it must be very devastating for her because there aren't too many Awabakal structures. I know, Paul, you've been trying to get some built. Well, if they do come to pass, make them huge and very heavy, all right? If the moral of the story is if someone can hack it out, they will. So it's I guess that's why the Italians made their bronzes so big, no one can ever steal them. And they've survived thousands of years. So anyway, that's okay, bit of sad news, but that's basically be on the lookout for your statuary.
What are the uni's new statues made of?
I don't know.
Oh,
the rabbits and I don't know.
Rabbits.
Rabbit. There's a rabbit in a yeah, a cat. What is it?
Gill and Martin ones.
It's
Are they made
similar
out of
to
plastic?
one. Yeah, it's similar to one that's in town that our former Lord Mayor had put up near what used to be the Telstra building in Yeah, that's funny.
That's his office.
But they're all around the world, it seems. A friend took me there because she said they're in different cities around the world, the same things, and people get their photos taken with them and post them on Instagram.
I think the marks, yeah, they're all through New York and everywhere.
Yeah, they're all over. So, yeah, I didn't know. I just thought, oh, they're weird. And my friend one day, she said, oh, come and look at this. We've got to get it.
All right. Now to more lighter matters. We had an interesting weekend, which we had the Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras down in Sydney. We had the opening of the Newcastle show. We had the 50th anniversary of the advent of colour TV. And there was one more. What was the fifth? Fourth? That might be it.
That was it. I think.
I did see some footage of the 78 Gay and Lesbian Mardi, the first one, and I was looking out for you, John, but I don't know if you were in that footage.
Yeah.
You were in there?
Whatever.
Do you want to say a few words about it?
About it?
Yeah.
I've got no idea. I was talking to Nick Henderson this morning, but that was about something else. There was, for years, we only relied on Digby Duncan's footage. She was making a film about lesbian parents, and this was to be just sort of a display of a gay rights demonstration, or parade, and we've been relying on that. So a lot of the research I did, and I've had to go through it by frame to identify, what was happening. This looks really great.
Yeah, I think it's from the ABC archives.
I thought it was Channel 10.
Channel 10, okay.
No, I just saw Channel 10 at the bottom.
Oh, well, then it was from Channel 10. So I wonder if Andrew Mercado would know about that. Yeah, because Andrew's been working with them with the number 96 stuff, so I wonder if they've found it in their travels.
Maybe it was a rebroadcast from Channel 10, I don't know.
The
78 is
I was looking out for you.
Pictures.
I don't know what you look like back then, so you'll have to give us some photos.
So was it the 47th year?
Yeah, 47th anniversary.
Yeah.
We held the 45th at the Star Hotel. Remember?
Yes.
And
I've got something to talk about that later. So
okay, would you want to talk about it now while we're on
it? Well, Grace Posey at Bernie's Bar has the idea of putting up a history marker outside, where the seating is in Devonshire Lane.
Okay.
One side being a straight history of Star, and the other side being history of the gay side of it. So all that we've heard on 45th anniversary, not all of it, will be there. So that's a project that I'm involved with. I think there's some uni students from here.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been approached as well.
Yeah.
So because with the Star Hotel film, we've got a lot of research and stuff. I only talked to her on Friday. She's very with it though. She's amazing.
Yes.
People approach me about stuff all the time, and I'm usually trying to find a way to get out of things. And she was very convincing.
Yeah, we've done the research, so
that was and she was really
cover all bases.
Yeah, people usually ring up and say, "Can you make a film about this? I've got no money." And then, but she's very clever and very across what she wants to do. Yeah, she really impressed me.
Yeah. So we've got list.
Are you going to put any of those sort of markers in? Make sure they're heavy.
Yes. And
drill as far down to the core of the earth as you can probably make it.
Yeah, well, it's Devonshire Lane, of course. And then I volunteered for that, but then I got an email from Nicholas Orr from the Heritage New South Wales saying, when can we meet up to talk about heritage listing for the Star Hotel? So I said, what?
It's something with the facade that I think is original. I think in that last development with the accommodation at the back.
Yeah. Oh, there's, yeah.
It's probably more for just its like social history, not architecture.
Yeah, that's, I think Grace is behind that as well. So, so we'll do rerun of that. I've actually done a bit of research over the weekend, mainly going through interviews, and I was thinking it's important for history of drag in New South Wales, because those people were actually putting on drag at the same time that the drag scene was just emerging in Sydney. So contemporaneous. It was a safe place, of course, for young queer kids here in the Hunter for all those years. And they came along to see alternative lifestyle. And it was a place where different groups in Newcastle, in the Hunter Society would meet and mingle and talk. And that was, when that closed, it was a real shame that it stopped. And then, but I've done a little bit of research based on David Marr's article about police monitoring of homosexuals in Newcastle. I'm looking through the interviews and through other things to try to work out exactly what the role was between the police and the gay community. And David Marr article was saying that the police had been monitoring lesbians and gays from way back. And when they had a gay murder in Newcastle, they brought the files out and they started interviewing the gay community as they knew it. They thought that was where the murderer was, because gays are just like married couple. They want to kill each other. So for 2 years, I think they wasted their time and resources on that. And 600 gay men were fingerprinted and interviewed, and some lost their jobs. But that's aside. That's why David came up here to expose that in National Review. But there was mentions of the police buying. When they'd interview these people, there was implied blackmail that you help us and we'll do something for you. And the other thing was that if you're a bit short of money, we can always supply you with money if you do this for us, which was basically inform on your friends. And so one interview I listened to, and it was quite explicit, saying that she didn't do this, but she knew other people did do this, which is quite scary. So that's, I don't know whether the heritage value is in that, but the Newcastle police is a reason why we gave in Sydney for the first Mardi Gras, because it was a clear case of harassment. So I guess there's a link between that and the Star Hotel, and because the Star Hotel and the Orient Hotel were two places where they were cops pubs, and the cops were installed in there. They would keep the place open until 4 o'clock in the morning, drinking, and the gays would go as well. So there'd be stories exchanged. So it was really, I haven't got to the bottom of it, but I'm sure that somebody's going to do some research soon. And
the Orient in Brooksville? No, it's in Hunter Street. Is it the Orient around the corner?
The Orient Hotel, where?
It's the Orient in Watt Street.
Oh, what's
It burnt down.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, that was a place that they'd go. The drag queens would go, but it was also a cops place. And then the cops took them from the Orient, or took some of them down to the Star and said, "This is where your new place is." And then police followed them down, and that became new cops' place as well.
And Grace told me that she's called it Bernie's Bar because it's named after one of the first gay bars in Newcastle, which is on Beaumont Street.
Yeah.
That was after the statute.
No, before the statute. It's historically, I think it goes back to the 40s or 50s. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's some, I think, some misunderstandings or whatever. The Bernie's Bar was Jackie Ansell opened that for 2 years in 1974.
Right. So it's much later.
And she used the name Bernie from the son of the owner or something. So, and he might, that family might have owned that place for a while. But It's not.
There's no do with addenda to you.
Well, yeah, we have, yeah, but it's a fascinating story. At some point, we'll do a queer story on Newcastle.
Can I ask a random question, Johnny?
Yep.
It's a totally selfish one, but it'll take you all back in time. 1942, Percy Pender, Newcastle City Morgue. Have I got you thinking, Doug? Is Doug still with us? I just want to, in my book, I'm placing Newcastle City Morgue in 1942. Percy Pender was a famous sergeant, so famous that the most Novocastrians went to him for their health check rather than a doctor, because they figured he knew more about it because of all the corpses. But where exactly, does anyone remember where Newcastle City Morgue in the 1940s? I'm locating it on the police wharf, Merriweather Street, near Dark's Iceworks and the punt arrival section. Anyone want to dispute that with me?
Thought it was in Pacific Park opposite the hospital.
I'll have to check. 'Cause I think we might.
1942.
I don't know about the 1942.
Yeah.
For some reason, something is ringing a bell with me with some architectural plans.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, if anyone can help me there, map.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't found it on a map yet, but I found references to it that appear to place it somewhere near the Water Police Wharf, which I think in 42 was down in that Dark's Iceworks area.
Up in the streets if it's near an ice.
Yeah, up from the pump.
There's a link to that. I've heard there's something rattling around my brain about them needing the ice.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that could be an association, couldn't it? Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Steer this course out of the doldrums that we're in at the moment.
All right, thank you anyway.
That's okay. All right, so we've had some posts. Robert Watson sent through something on the Newcastle show about a six-legged polymuzook that also happened to date one of our photos that we had in there that was undated of the Newcastle showground. So, Robert, you still with us?
I am.
There you go. I've also got a grok to create your polymuzook.
Oh, right. Wow.
Like renderings of him as a sort of a crocodile-looking creature.
Yeah, so the story was that photo there that's on that one there. I was actually trying to find out whether the big building in the background was the one called the Wall's End Pavilion that was moved from Wall's End. I haven't got an answer on that yet, but then I zoomed in. I think if you go down a little bit, Johnny, I zoomed in because I saw a sign that said six-legged polymuzook, which I thought, well, that sounds bizarre. So, and luckily it's so bizarre that there was really only one reference around the world. And so it was supposedly an animal that was part fish and part mammal or something. So it was put on display and was at least shown in Newcastle and also in Brisbane about 6 months later. But the site that I found in America is there was a guy in America who used to make paper mache models of things. So he had things like the Chinese man with two faces and the boy whose twin sister was growing out of his chest and things like that. So so that's the polymuzook, and in the top left-hand corner it actually says facsimile of, and that's the trick. So this guy, I guess a predecessor to Madame Tussauds, used to make these things out of paper mache and show them around the world. So that's the polymuzook, and I thought I'll put that up in the week of the Newcastle show. But of course, you can't see the polymuzook anymore.
I found an article on archive.org, which I put at the bottom of that below.
Yeah, and I guess the delight for me was that the original slide that was in the archives at the uni was undated, but anyhow, so I had figured that it might be from about the 1930s, but anyhow, because it only toured Australia once in 1923, that helped to date that photo. Can't remember who the collection was. of those slides, but there was more than one slide anyhow.
Yeah.
Yep, that's all.
It's like E.J. Braggett. Look at it. But anyway, thank you, Robert.
Okay.
There was also when you inspired us to do a post on the Newcastle show photos, so we were able to sort of go through our various collections. There's a few snowballs there. I mean, dating back almost to the inception of it back in 1902. These are 1905, 1906, 1907 interiors. The Hannon Photographic Archive has also been giving us some interesting ones from the 1950s. The university had some, so it's really nice just being able to pull together a whole variety of these images. So they're up there as well. What else? The rehousing of, we also had Roland Bannister, ethnomusicologist, who was able to enhance some information that we had on Mr. Anderson, that ran a lot of our university reviews back in the university college days. That's him there. So Roland knew him in Wagga, and so was able to give us a story of his Wagga days. So I sent that link off to our colleagues at Charles University because it just helps create a little connecting story. So the university reviews that he did here, they went and had them also in Wagga as well. So so that's there he is there. I colorised that shot using AI. So I tell people when I colorise things using AI technologies just to charm them up a little. But Colin Anderson was an interesting sort of character as well. Amir, our conservator, and Davina also rehoused, finished the work that Kula Swan, one of our library officers, was involved with in rehousing the Percy Haslam artefacts. So they've been sitting in these sorts of boxes since the 1980s. So it was really satisfying to get them all measured up and rehoused in lovely new boxes with foam and what else? We've done a couple of UON 60 posts in addition with the satellite one from physics. We've also done one on the university's grant of arms and also another prehistory one on the Newcastle Conservatorium of Music. So I've got another one that I've got to put together on the Teachers College. Because even though the university is celebrating its 60th, we've got these various strands of history from the Teachers College, the University College, and also the Conservatorium that all sort of come together in 1989. So the third strand will be the Teachers College. I'm just hoping that Greg Preston, once he's back from sabbatical, will be able to help steer that one because he's done a beautiful history of that. And we've also got a forthcoming exhibition that will be getting set up pretty soon after our mapping one is done, and that's being curated by our conservator Amir, and it's on Physica Curiosa, The Edges of Knowing, that's the title, and Katie's putting that one together as we speak on interesting, monstrous representations of things in ancient books, so that should prove another interesting So I think that's it for any updates. Anyway, we have to say farewell. We've overstayed our welcome.
Thank you everyone for their time. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very difficult question you're asking. Anyway, see you later. I'll see you next week. Next month in town.
Yeah. At the mall.
Sounds like you've got a lot of time already.